The coronation was 2 oaths from completion when Alpha King Kalen smelled something that shouldn't exist. Not the incense, not the candle wax pooling in golden rivers down the ceremonial pillars, not even the nervous sweat of 1,000 wolves packed into the great hall, their amber eyes tracking his every movement. This was different, faint, fragile, dying. "Your Majesty?" High Commander Soren's voice cut through the haze. "The final oath awaits." Kalen's fingers tightened around the hilt of the sovereign blade, knuckles white beneath the ceremonial gloves. The scent threaded through his senses again, so soft it might have been imagined. Except his wolf knew better. His wolf was clawing at his ribs, whining, howling inside his skull like a trapped animal. "I'm fine," he lied. He wasn't fine. The scent pulled. Not like a perfume drifting past, like a rope tied around his sternum, yanking him forward, downward, with increasing violence. His vision swam. Heat flared along his bond line, a place that had been silent his entire life, now screaming with recognition. "Go," something primal whispered. "Now, the bloodline of peace must be sealed before midnight," Elder Vanya intoned from her place among the High Council. Her gaze was sharp, expectant. "Or the right is forfeit." Kalen tried to breathe, tried to focus, but the pull came again, so vicious he actually staggered, one knee buckling before he caught himself against the dais. The hall fell silent. 1,000 wolves held their breath. "Sire," Soren reached for him. "Don't." The word came out rough, barely human. Kalen forced himself upright, his wolf thrashing so violently he thought his bones might crack. In 32 years, through war, through loss, through the brutal trials that forged an Alpha King, he'd never lost control. Not once. Until now. "I need to." He couldn't finish, couldn't explain. His feet were already moving, abandoning the sovereign blade on the altar, the sacred circle, the stunned nobility. "Your Majesty, where are you going?" Soren's voice pitched with alarm as Kalen strode toward the side archway. Every step a battle against instinct that screamed faster, deeper, now. "I don't know." That was the truth. He didn't know. But his wolf did. And his wolf was no longer asking permission. Before we dive deeper, make sure you subscribe and comment your country or city, so I know where you're listening from. Okay, moving on. They moved through corridors Kalen had walked since childhood. Past the royal wing, past the kitchens, down staircases that grew older with every descent. Polished marble gave way to rough-hewn stone. Torchlight faded into shadow. "Sire, these are the old passages." Soren's tone shifted from concern to dread. "No one's been down here since. Since when?" Kalen didn't slow. "Since, I don't know. The records don't say." The scent was stronger now. Not just fragile, desperate. It carried notes of frost and fear, of something precious fading by the heartbeat. Kalen's hands traced the walls, finding warmth where there should only be cold stone. "Someone's here." "That's not possible," Soren breathed. "These chambers have been sealed for generations." A sound cut through the darkness. Soft, shallow, breathing. Kalen's wolf went completely feral. He ran, abandoning all pretense of royal dignity, of control, of reason. His boots pounded against ancient stone as he followed passages he'd never explored, instinct guiding him through turns that shouldn't make sense. The breathing grew louder, punctuated by something else. A heartbeat, slow, too slow, fading. "Your Majesty, please." Soren's plea echoed behind him. Kalen didn't stop. Couldn't stop. The pull was agony now, his entire body screaming that he was running out of time, that she was running out of time. She, the passage ended at a door, iron, rusted, marked with symbols that made his skin crawl even before he touched them. Old magic. Binding magic. The kind the modern kingdom had outlawed centuries ago. the kind that reeked of cruelty and forbidden power. "What is this place?" Soren whispered. Kalen didn't answer. His hand closed around the door's handle and pain, white-hot, searing pain, shot up his arm. Wolf silver, embedded in the metal, designed to burn, to repel, to punish any wolf who dared approach. His palm sizzled, skin blistering, but he didn't let go, couldn't let go, because beyond this door, behind iron and cruelty and centuries of silence, someone was dying, and every fiber of his being, every instinct that made him alpha, that made him king, recognized her. The lock wouldn't budge, the door wouldn't open, but the breathing on the other side grew shallower, weaker, desperate. Kalen pulled harder, his hand screaming, his wolf howling, his soul fracturing at the barrier between him and whoever, whatever called to him from the darkness. "Seer, your hand. Break it down," Kalen commanded, his voice no longer human. "Now, to all our returning listeners, thank you for coming back and sharing these stories with us. And to those joining us for the first time, we're so glad you found your way here. If you'd like to support the channel and enjoy special member perks, consider becoming a channel member. We'd be honored to have you as part of our growing community." Soren threw his weight against the door alongside Kalen. Once, twice. On the third impact, the ancient hinges shrieked and gave way, iron crashing inward with a sound like bones breaking. The smell hit first, not decay. Worse, survival. The desperate, clinging scent of a body that refused to die despite every reason to surrender. Kalen stumbled through the opening, and his breath stopped. The chamber was small, windowless, carved from stone so old it predated the palace itself. No torch brackets, no ventilation, just darkness and cold, and the kind of silence that came from being forgotten. And in the corner, crumpled against the wall like discarded cloth. Here, she was barely visible in the dim light, spilling through the broken door. Bones sharp beneath torn linen that might have been white once, now grey with filth and time. Her wrists were shackled to the wall with iron chains, the metal stained dark with old blood, and something worse, wolf silver burns that had eaten into her skin, leaving raw, weeping wounds that should have killed her from infection alone. Her ankles bore the same marks, same cruelty, same impossible survival. "Gods!" Soren breathed behind him. Kalen couldn't speak, couldn't move. His wolf was howling, thrashing, screaming inside his chest with a grief so violent it felt like dying. The girl's head lifted, slowly, as if even that small movement cost everything. Her eyes found his in the darkness, pale, haunted, barely human. "Please." The word was wind-scraping stone, a voice that had forgotten how to be heard. "Please don't hurt me again." Something inside Kalen shattered. He was moving before thought, before reason, dropping to his knees in front of her. She flinched, pressing back against the wall despite the chains cutting deeper into her wrists. "I'm not going to hurt you," he managed, his voice breaking. "I swear it. I'm not." "They always say that." Her eyes were glassy, fever-bright, barely focusing. "They always say that. Who did this to you?" But he didn't ask, couldn't ask, because his hands were already reaching for the shackles, and the moment his fingers brushed her wrist, recognition, not memory, not logic, something deeper, older, a place in his soul that had been empty his entire life, suddenly screaming with certainty. "Mine, mine." His wolf surged, and for a moment Kalen thought he'd shift right there, thought he'd lose himself completely. But then her eyes fluttered closed, her head lolling forward, and panic overrode everything else. "Stay with me." He gripped the shackles, ignoring the wolf silver burning into his palms. "Stay awake." The metal resisted. Of course it did. Designed to hold, designed to torture. But Kalen was an alpha king, and rage gave him strength even pain couldn't steal. The first shackle broke, then the second. She collapsed forward, and he caught her before she hit the ground. So light, too light, like holding a bird with hollow bones, something that should have flown away long ago but never got the chance. "Sire." Soren's voice was strangled. Who is she? Kaelin looked down at the girl in his arms, at the scars, the burns, the evidence of systematic, deliberate cruelty. Her chest rose and fell in shallow gasps, each breath a miracle she shouldn't have survived to take. I don't know. The truth tasted like ash, but his wolf knew. His wolf was certain, and the scent, that impossible, undeniable scent, that had pulled him from the coronation, from duty, from everything. It was hers. All hers. We need healers, Sorin said. I'll summon. No. The word came out sharp. Absolute. Kaelin stood, cradling her against his chest, feeling how her heartbeat fluttered weak and erratic against his own. No healers. Not yet. But sire, she's dying. I said no. He turned, meeting his guard captain's eyes. Sorin stepped back, whatever he saw in Kaelin's face making him go very still. No one knows about this. No one knows she exists. Do you understand? But yes, but someone put her here, Sorin. Kaelin's voice dropped, going cold. Dangerous. Someone chained her, starved her, left her to die beneath the ceremony hall where no one would ever look, where no one would ever smell her, except he had. Somehow, impossibly, he'd smelled her when no one else could. Until we know who. He looked down at the girl again, at the faint flutter of her eyelashes, the barely there rise of her chest. Until we know why. She stays hidden. Sorin swallowed hard. Where will you take her? The East Tower. My private chambers. Kaelin moved toward the broken door, each step careful, deliberate, as if she might shatter in his arms. Lock this place behind us. Tell no one. If anyone asks where I went, you fell ill during the ceremony. I escorted you to your rooms. Sorin's jaw was tight, but he nodded. Understood. Kaelin paused at the threshold, looking back at the chamber one last time, at the chains still hanging from the wall, at the bloodstains centuries old mixed with stains far too fresh, at the nightmare someone had built beneath the palace, beneath his coronation. The girl stirred in his arms, a soft, broken sound escaping her lips, and Kaelin realized, with crushing certainty, she wasn't supposed to survive. But she had, and now someone was going to answer for it. She woke screaming, not loud. She didn't have the strength for loud. But the sound tore through Kaelin's chest like claws, raw and terrified and broken. He was at her side before Sorin could move, before the healer he'd sworn to secrecy could set down her supplies. The girl thrashed against the silk sheets, eyes wild, unfocused, seeing something that wasn't there. Easy, Kaelin murmured, keeping his distance even as every instinct screamed to touch her, to soothe her. You're safe, Her gaze locked on him, on his eyes. Amber, wolf eyes. No, the word came out choked. No, please, not again. I'm not going to hurt you. He raised his hands slowly, deliberately, showing her he held nothing. No chains, no weapons, no cruelty. I promise. I swear on my life. I will not. They all say that. She pressed back against the headboard, and even that small movement made her gasp with pain. Every time they say that. Kaelin's wolf whimpered, actually whimpered, like a kicked dog. Look at me. He kept his voice soft, steady. Really look. Do you remember? I pulled you out. I broke the chains. I carried you here. Her breathing hitched. Confusion flickered across her face, warring with terror. The door, she whispered. You broke the door. Yes. Why? The question was so simple, so devastating, as if kindness was a concept she'd forgotten existed. Because I heard you. Because I couldn't breathe until I found you. Because no one should be left like that. She stared at him for a long moment. Then, slowly, her gaze traveled around the room, taking in the fire crackling in the hearth, the clean linens, the food laid out on a nearby table, the healer hovering uncertainly in the corner. This is, her voice cracked. This is the palace. My private chambers, Kaelin confirmed. You're safe here. Safe. She repeated the word like it was foreign. Then her eyes found his again, and something shifted in them. Something sharp, aware, frightened. Do you know who I am? No. He leaned forward slightly. Tell me. She was silent for so long he thought she wouldn't answer. When she finally spoke, her voice was hollow. Illyra. My name is Illyra. Illyra, he repeated gently. The name settled into his bones like it had always belonged there. House therein. Her hands twisted in the sheets, and he saw her wrists bandaged now, clean, but the scars beneath would never fully heal. We were minor nobility. Until what? Until they declared me dead. The words came flat. Empty. 5 years ago, there was a ceremony, a pyre. My parents wept. The kingdom mourned. Her laugh was broken glass. But I wasn't dead. Kaelin's blood went cold. Where were you? Beneath the ceremony hall. She looked at him, and her eyes held nothing but truth. Raw, terrible truth. I've been there ever since. 5 years. 5 years in darkness. In chains. In agony. Why? The question came out rougher than he intended. Why would anyone? I don't know. Her voice broke. I don't know. They came for me in the night. Said I was dangerous. Said I was cursed. They wouldn't tell me why. Wouldn't explain. She stopped abruptly, her whole body going rigid. Illyra? She wasn't looking at him anymore. She was looking at her hands, spread out on the white sheets. They were glowing, faint, barely visible in the firelight, but unmistakable. A soft, pale luminescence that pulsed beneath her skin like a second heartbeat. No, she whispered. No, not again. The glow flickered, faded, vanished. But Kaelin had seen it. The healer had seen it. And Sorin, standing guard by the door, had gone absolutely white. What was that? Kaelin asked carefully. Illyra's hands clenched into fists. Why they buried me. Before he could press further, a sharp knock echoed through the chamber. Sorin moved to the door, opened it a crack, then looked back at Kaelin with barely concealed alarm. Sire, Elder Vanya demands an audience. She says it's urgent. Kaelin's jaw tightened. Tell her. She knows you're here. Sorin's voice dropped. And she's asking questions. Already, he'd been so careful. Taken every precaution. Used his private stairwell. Posted guards he trusted absolutely. But rumors in the palace spread like wildfire, and absence from one's own coronation didn't go unnoticed. Give me a moment. He looked back at Illyra, who'd gone very still, very quiet. I'll return. I promise. You can't protect me. Her voice was resigned. Whatever I am, they won't let me live. They don't get that choice. The words came out fierce, final. I do. He rose, nodded to the healer to stay, and followed Sorin into the corridor. Elder Vanya waited just beyond the door, her silver hair pinned back severely, her expression carved from ice. Your Majesty. She didn't bow, didn't smile. You abandoned your coronation. I fell ill. Liar. The word was soft, deadly. I can smell her on you. Kaelin went very still. I don't know what you... The girl beneath the ceremony hall. Vanya stepped closer, and her eyes blazed amber. The one who should have stayed buried. His wolf surged. Careful, Elder. No, you be careful. She glanced at the door, and something like fear flickered across her face. You have no idea what you've brought into this palace. What she is. Then enlighten me. Vanya's smile was thin. Sharp. A mistake, she said quietly. One the High Council corrected 5 years ago. Her gaze locked with his, and one we will correct again. The council chamber was built for intimidation. Vaulted ceilings that swallowed sound. Walls carved with the names of every Alpha King who'd ruled before. And at the center, a circular table of black stone where 12 elders sat in judgment. All of them staring at Kaelin. You will return the girl to confinement. Elder Vanya's voice echoed through the chamber. Immediately. No, Kalen remained standing, refusing to sit, refusing to acknowledge this as anything but the interrogation it was. She's done nothing wrong. She exists. Elder Corin slammed his palm on the table. That alone is crime enough. Crime? Kalen's voice went dangerously soft. Elaborate. The elders exchanged glances, uncomfortable, furtive. Finally, Elder Thane, ancient, half-blind, but still sharp, spoke. There are laws, Your Majesty. Old laws, written when the first kingdoms rose, when the bloodlines were still. Pure, Kalen repeated flatly. Unmixed. Vanya leaned forward. Wolf and wolf, not wolf and other. You've seen what she is. Corin's lip curled. The glow, the strangeness in her blood. She's tainted, corrupted, a threat to every pack in this realm. Kalen's hands clenched behind his back. She's been imprisoned for 5 years, tortured, starved, and you're telling me this was legal? It was necessary. Thane's voice was weary, almost regretful. The law is clear. Any child born with that in their veins must be removed, for the safety of all. Removed. The word tasted like poison. You mean murdered. We do not murder. Vanya's eyes flashed. We contain. We protect. We ensure the survival of wolfkind by eliminating threats before they can spread. She's not a threat. She's a girl who glows with forbidden magic. Corin stood, his voice rising. Who carries bloodlines that were exterminated for good reason. Do you know what happens when that power awakens fully? Do you know what they become? No, Kalen said coldly. Why don't you tell me? Silence. Heavy, suffocating. Because you don't know either, he continued. You're operating on fear, on stories, on laws written by people who are centuries dead. Those laws kept us alive, Vanya hissed. They protected us from what? Kalen stepped forward. Say it. Tell me what you're so afraid of. But none of them would answer. And that told him everything. Illyra heard them before she saw them. Guards, posted outside Kalen's chambers. Young, nervous, whispering like they thought she couldn't hear through the door. Cursed, I'm telling you. My grandfather said the glow-touched were all purged. Then how is she alive? Mistake. Has to be. Council probably thought she was dead. Well, she should be. You know what they say about her kind. They bring death, disease, corruption. I heard she can steal your wolf just by looking at you. Illyra pressed her hands over her ears, but it didn't help. The words sank in anyway, settling into the hollow places inside her where hope used to be. Cursed. Mistake. Should be dead. Her hands began to glow. She watched, detached, as the pale light spread from her palms up her arms, pulsing in time with her heartbeat. Stronger than before. Brighter, harder, to control. Stop, she whispered to herself. Stop. The glow intensified. The archives were forbidden for a reason. Kalen descended the spiral staircase into the palace's lowest level, where books older than memory gathered dust in the darkness. Soren followed, torch held high, neither of them speaking. The texts were here. They had to be. Buried, hidden, but not destroyed. Never destroyed, because some part of every regime needed to remember what it had done. He found the first reference an hour into the search. Decree of Purification. Year 847. All children bearing marks of the ancient bloodlines shall be identified and removed from wolf populations. Methods: isolation, confinement, or elimination, as circumstances require. His blood ran cold. Another text, older, more explicit. The glow touched are remnants of the time before wolves, before purity. They carry magic that predates our kind, and magic that does not bow to our laws. For the survival of wolfkind, they must not be allowed to reach maturity. Gods, Soren breathed beside him. They've been doing this for centuries. How many? Kalen's voice was hollow. How many children? The answer was in the ledgers, page after page of names, dates, ages, Most were young, very young, eliminated, contained, removed, sanitized language for unspeakable acts. And at the bottom of one page, in handwriting he recognized, Illyra Therin, aged 17, status, contained beneath ceremony hall, awaiting natural expiration. Natural expiration, as if starvation was natural. Kaelin's hands shook as he closed the book. Sire, Soren's voice was tight. We need to get back. If the council realizes you're down here, a sound cut through the archives. Distant, muffled, but unmistakable. Screaming. Kaelin ran. He burst through the chamber doors to find chaos. The healer pressed against the wall, terrified. Guards backing away, hands on their weapons. And in the center of the room, Illyra, on her knees, hands clutching her head, light pouring from her skin in waves. Not gentle, not soft, violent. The air around her crackled with energy, and everything metal in the room began to hum and vibrate. Illyra! Kaelin moved toward her, and the moment he got close, heat, overwhelming, crushing heat that slammed into his chest like a fist. His bondlines screamed, and for the first time in his life, Kaelin felt it fully. Not potential, not dormant, active, awake, hers. She looked up at him, and her eyes were pure light. Terrified. Lost. I can't. Her voice broke. I can't stop it. Look at me. He dropped to his knees in front of her, ignoring the power that made his skin prickle, his wolf howl. Illyra, look at me. She did, and the world shifted. Recognition crashed through him. Not just instinct, not just bond. Memory, ancient, inherited, echoing through his bloodline like a song he'd forgotten he knew. She's not a threat. She's the answer. Breathe, he commanded softly. With me. In and out. She tried. Failed. The light flared brighter. Then, without thinking, Kaelin reached out and took her hands. The power surged between them and stabilized. Illyra gasped, the glow dimming, fading, until only the faintest luminescence remained beneath her skin. How? She stared at their joined hands, at the place where his touch had calmed what nothing else could. How did you? Kaelin didn't have an answer, but his wolf did. Mate, it whispered with absolute certainty. Fated. Ours. The door slammed open. Elder Vanya stood in the threshold, flanked by council guards, her face twisted with fury and something worse. Fear. Seize her, she commanded. The purity trial will convene at dawn. They built the altar in the center of the great hall, the same hall where Kaelin's coronation should have ended, where 1,000 wolves had gathered to witness the beginning of his reign. Now they gathered to witness an execution, because that's what this was. No matter what they called it, the altar itself was ancient. Black stone veined with silver, carved with symbols that predated written language. It had been kept in the deepest vault of the temple, unused for generations. Unused because everyone who'd touched it had died screaming. This is madness. Kaelin stood between Illyra and the council, his voice echoing through the hall. You're asking her to prove her innocence by surviving something designed to kill her. Not kill, Elder Vanya corrected smoothly. Purify. If she is truly innocent, the altar will recognize her purity. If she is corrupted, she spread her hands, then the realm will be cleansed of a threat. Convenient. Kaelin's lip curled. And if she dies, you can claim the law was upheld. That justice was served. The law will be upheld. Elder Corin stepped forward, addressing the crowd rather than Kaelin. For too long, we have grown soft, forgotten why our ancestors built these protections. But the old magic does not forget. The altar does not lie. Murmurs rippled through the assembled wolves, some approving, some uncertain, all watching. She hasn't even recovered from 5 years of imprisonment, Kaelin continued, desperation creeping into his voice. You're asking a starving, wounded girl to... I'll do it. Illyra's voice was quiet, steady, Every head turned toward her. She stood at the edge of the dais, flanked by guards, wearing simple white robes the council had provided. Ceremonial or funerary. The distinction didn't seem to matter to them. Illyra, no. Kaelin moved toward her, but guards stepped into his path. You don't have to. Yes, I do. She met his eyes, and something in her gaze had changed, hardened. If I don't prove myself here, they'll never stop hunting me. Never stop hunting others like me. There are no others, Vanya said coldly. We made certain of that. Did you? Illyra's voice carried through the hall. Or did you just bury them so deep you could pretend they didn't exist? Silence. Illyra turned to face the crowd, the hundreds of wolves watching with amber eyes, waiting to see if she would burn. I don't know what I am, she said clearly. I don't know why I glow, why my blood is different, why your laws say I shouldn't exist. She paused. But I know I'm not the only one, and if I don't do this, every child like me will die in darkness, alone, forgotten. Her eyes found Kaelin's again. I won't let that happen. Pride and terror warred in Kaelin's chest. His wolf was howling, clawing, begging him to stop this. But he saw the determination in her face, the choice she'd already made. For the first time in 5 years, Illyra had her own voice, and she was choosing to use it. Begin the trial, Vanya commanded. They bound her wrists with ceremonial chains. Not iron, not wolf silver. Something older, something that hummed with dormant power as they fastened it around her arms. Illyra didn't fight, didn't resist as they led her to the altar. Up close, it was worse than Kaelin had imagined. The stone seemed to absorb light, pulling darkness toward it like a wound in the world. And the symbols, they moved, shifted, as if something living writhed beneath the surface. The trial is simple, Elder Thane announced, his ancient voice carrying weight that silence alone could not. Place your palm upon the altar. If you are pure, it will accept you. If you are corrupted, he didn't finish. He didn't need to. Illyra stood before the altar, hands still bound, breathing carefully. Kaelin could see her pulse hammering in her throat, see the faint tremor in her shoulders, but she didn't step back. Any final words? Vanya asked, and her tone suggested she hoped there wouldn't be. Illyra looked at Kaelin one last time. Don't let them bury the truth again, she said softly. Whatever happens. Then she turned to the altar, raised her bound hands, and pressed her palm flat against the stone. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the altar screamed. Not sound, something worse. A vibration that rattled teeth and bones, that made wolves across the hall whimper and cover their ears. The symbols blazed to life, silver light erupting from the stone. And Illyra didn't burn. She glowed, brighter than before, brighter than Kaelin had ever seen. Light poured from her skin in waves, meeting the altar's power not with submission, but with defiance. It's rejecting her! Corin shouted. The corruption is too deep! But Kaelin saw the truth. The altar wasn't rejecting her. It was responding. The black stone began to crack. Fractures spiderwebbed from Illyra's palm, spreading across the surface, and with each crack came more light. Not silver, not the cold, dead illumination of ancient magic. Gold, warm, living, alive. Illyra gasped, her back arching, but she didn't pull away, couldn't pull away. Her power surged through the altar, through the very foundations of the hall, and everywhere it touched, things changed. The symbols on the stone shifted, reformed. No longer warnings and wards, but something else. Something that looked almost like welcome, recognition, home. Impossible. Vanya breathed. The altar gave a final shuddering crack, and transformed. Where black stone had been, now pale marble gleamed. Where symbols of purification had warned away the corrupted, now new markings emerged. Ancient, beautiful, written in a language no living wolf remembered, but that resonated in blood and bone nonetheless. The chains around Illyra's wrists shattered. She collapsed to her knees, hands still pressed to the altar, breathing hard. The glow began to fade, slowly, leaving her pale and shaking, but alive. Alive, and the altar beneath her palm no longer demanded purity. It proclaimed something else entirely. Elder Thane staggered forward, his half-blind eyes wide with recognition, with horror. "The Uniter's mark," he whispered. "It's the Uniter's mark." Kaelin didn't understand, but the elders did. They'd gone white, all of them. Vanya's hands trembled. "What is that?" Someone in the crowd called. "What does it mean?" Thane turned slowly, his voice shaking. "It means she's not corrupted," he said. "It means she's not a mistake." He looked at Illyra, still kneeling at the transformed altar, and something like awe crossed his ancient face. "It means she's a prophecy." The great hall erupted into chaos, and beneath it all, Kaelin felt the bond between him and Illyra ignite fully, completely, undeniably, fated. The altar hadn't just proven her innocence, it had declared her destiny, and the kingdom would never be the same. The kingdom fractured before dawn. Kaelin watched from the tower window as wolves gathered in the courtyards below, their voices rising in heated argument. Some knelt before makeshift shrines, placing offerings of flowers and candles. Others burned effigies, screaming for blood. All because of what the altar had revealed. "Reports are coming in from every territory," Soren said grimly, scanning the latest dispatch. "The northern packs are calling her a savior. The eastern territories want her executed. The Western Alliance is threatening to withdraw their allegiance if you don't. If I don't what?" Kaelin turned from the window. "Kill her? Imprison her again? Pretend she doesn't exist? Sire, she survived their trial. She transformed their altar. What more proof do they need?" "Proof isn't the issue." Soren set down the papers. "Fear is." A knock interrupted them. Sharp. Urgent. The healer burst in without waiting for permission, her face ashen. "Your Majesty, you need to come. Now." Illyra's chambers were in chaos. Guards clustered around the entrance, weapons drawn. Inside, furniture lay overturned, curtains shredded, and on the bed, a dagger, silver-edged, poisoned, embedded in the pillow where Illyra's head should have been. "Where is she?" Kaelin's voice came out deadly calm. "The balcony," one of the guards stammered. "She's on the balcony. We tried to move her, but she refused." Kaelin pushed past them. Illyra stood at the balcony's edge, staring down at the divided crowds below. The wind whipped her hair around her face, and her hands glowed faintly in the pre-dawn light. "They tried to kill me," she said without turning. "In my sleep, while your guards stood watch." "I know." Kaelin moved beside her carefully. "I'm sorry. I should have." "It was one of your guards." Her voice was hollow. "Wasn't it?" He didn't answer. "Didn't need to." "How many more?" she asked. "How many others in this palace want me dead? We'll find them. You can't protect me from everyone, Kaelin." She finally looked at him, and her eyes held a terrible clarity. "This isn't just about me anymore. Look," she gestured to the crowds below, to the wolves shouting, fighting, fracturing into factions. "They're tearing themselves apart. Some think I'm salvation, some think I'm damnation, and both sides are willing to kill for it. Then we'll show them the truth." "What truth?" Her hands clenched. "I don't even know what I am. Prophet? Monster? Mistake?" She laughed bitterly. "The altar gave me a title, but it didn't give me answers." "Then we'll find them together." She turned to him fully, and something shifted in her expression, hardened. "No more hiding," she said. "No more protection. If this power is mine, if this destiny is real, then I'm done being shielded." "Illyra, I spent 5 years in darkness while people pretended I didn't exist." Her voice rose. "I won't spend another day hidden away like a shameful secret. If they want to see what I am, let them see." Before Kaelin could respond, light erupted from her palms, not uncontrolled, not violent, purposeful. It shot upward into the sky, a pillar of golden radiance that split the pre-dawn darkness like a blade. Every wolf in the courtyard below stopped, stared, gasped. The light pulsed once, twice, then expanded outward in a wave that washed over the entire palace. And everywhere it touched, truth followed. Kalen felt it in his bones, a revelation, a memory that wasn't his own. Images flashed through his mind. Children with glowing hands, imprisoned, families torn apart in the night, mass graves hidden beneath sacred ground, centuries of systematic extermination buried under law and righteousness. The light faded, and Illyra swayed. Kalen caught her before she fell. "What?" He struggled to speak. "What did you just do?" "Showed them," she whispered. "Showed them what was done, what your council has been hiding." Below, the courtyard had gone silent. Wolves stood frozen, staring at nothing, or at everything, at visions only they could see. Then someone screamed. Another dropped to their knees, weeping, and Elder Corin, standing among them, went pale as death. "You fool girl," he breathed. "You've doomed us all." The emergency council session was a battlefield. She used forbidden magic on our people. Vanya slammed her fist on the table. Mind manipulation. She showed them lies. Those weren't lies. Elder Thane's voice was quiet, broken. "I remember. I was there for some of them. The purges, the burials." Silence crashed through the chamber. "You knew?" Kalen's voice dropped to something dangerous. "All this time, you knew?" "We all knew." Thane looked at his fellow elders. "Some of us participated. Some of us looked away. But we all knew what happened to the glow-touched children. Necessary sacrifices," Corin spat, "for the survival of our kind. Children." Kalen's wolf pushed through his voice, making it deeper. "Inhuman. You murdered children. To prevent catastrophe. You don't understand what they become when fully awakened." "Then enlighten me." Kalen leaned forward. "What happens? What are you so terrified of?" None of them answered, and in that silence, Soren burst through the doors. "Your Majesty." His face was sheet white. "We found something. Beneath the palace. Past where we found the girl." Kalen's blood went cold. "What did you find?" "Cells." Soren's voice cracked. "Dozens of them. Sealed. Hidden behind false walls." He swallowed hard. There are others." The council chamber exploded into chaos. Kalen was moving before anyone could stop him. Soren at his heels, descending into the depths of the palace, past where he'd found Illyra, deeper, into sections that shouldn't exist. The smell hit him first. Desperation, fear, slow death. Then he heard them, breathing. Dozens of voices, weak, fading, alive. Soren's men had already broken through the first wall. Behind it, a corridor of cells, and in each one, children, some barely breathing, others unconscious, all bearing the same marks, glowing skin, ancient bloodlines, power that hadn't been broken despite years of trying. Kalen's knees nearly buckled. "How many?" His voice came out strangled. "We found 18 so far." Soren's hands shook. "But there are more walls, more sections. We don't know how deep it goes." 18 children, buried alive, while the kingdom celebrated above them. Kalen turned slowly to face the council members who'd followed him down. Vanya, Corin, Thane. Their faces told him everything. They'd known. They'd always known. "Get them out," Kalen commanded, his voice no longer human. "Every single one. Bring healers, food, water, and someone find Illyra." "Your Majesty, we can't just," Vanya began. "Another word," Kalen interrupted softly. "And I will forget you're an elder. I will forget you're protected by law, and I will let my wolf show you exactly what I think of people who torture children." Vanya's mouth snapped shut. Kalen looked at the cells, at the barely living children who'd been left to die in darkness, at the proof of atrocities committed in the name of purity, and he knew with absolute certainty this wasn't just about Illyra anymore. This was war. They found the oldest section 3 levels deeper. Behind a wall that had been bricked over so long ago, the mortar had fused with the stone. behind wards that burned Kaelin's hands when he touched them, behind silence so complete it felt like death itself. "It's sealed with blood magic," the court mage whispered, her voice trembling. "Old blood magic, the kind that requires sacrifice." "Break it," Kaelin commanded. "Your Majesty, if we break it, everyone inside will. They're already dying." His voice was raw. "Break it, now." It took an hour. When the wall finally crumbled, the smell that poured out made hardened warriors retch. Not decay, worse, survival. The corridor beyond was ancient, predating even the oldest sections of the palace, and along its length, carved directly into the stone. Cells, smaller than Illyra's had been, crueler, some barely large enough for a child to lie down, and in each one, light, faint, flickering, dying. But there, gods above, Sorin breathed. Kaelin moved through the corridor in a daze, past cell after cell, counting, always counting. 12, 15, 23. 23 children. Some were barely conscious, others didn't move at all. Their skin glowed weakly beneath layers of filth and neglect, power struggling to sustain bodies that should have given up years ago. "How long?" Kaelin's voice cracked. "How long have they been down here?" The mage knelt beside the nearest cell, her hands hovering over the ancient lock. "Based on the wards. Decades. Some of these seals are 40, 50 years old. 50 years. Children imprisoned before Kaelin was born, before his father ruled, perhaps before his grandfather. Get them out." He could barely speak. "All of them. I don't care what it takes." "Kaelin." Illyra's voice cut through the chaos. She stood at the corridor's entrance, flanked by guards who'd tried and failed to keep her away. Her face was pale, stricken, and her hands were already glowing. "Illyra, you shouldn't be. They're calling for me." She moved forward, ignoring protests. "Can't you hear them?" Kaelin listened, and then he did hear it. Barely audible, a sound like wind through broken glass. "Help, please, sister." Illyra stopped at the first cell. Inside, a girl no more than 12 lay curled against the wall, her breathing shallow, her skin glowing with sickly, unstable light that pulsed erratically. "Can you open it?" Illyra asked quietly. The mage worked quickly, and the lock gave way with a sound like breaking bones. Illyra knelt at the entrance. "I'm here," she whispered. "I'm here. You're not alone anymore." The girl's eyes fluttered open, pale, clouded, barely seeing. Then Illyra reached out and took her hand. Light, it surged between them, Illyra's golden radiance flowing into the girl's failing glow. Not overwhelming, not consuming, sustaining. The girl gasped. Her eyes cleared, her breathing steadied, and her power stabilized. "What?" The mage stared. "How is that possible?" Illyra didn't answer. She was already moving to the next cell, and the next, touching each child, each barely living soul that had been buried in darkness, and everywhere she touched. Life, not healing, not complete restoration, but enough to pull them back from the edge, enough to give them a chance. Kaelin watched, his wolf howling with grief and rage and something else, something that felt like destiny clicking into place. This was what they'd feared, not destruction. This, the power to undo everything they'd done. The emergency session was held in private. No guards, no witnesses, just Kaelin and the 12 elders who'd ruled beside his father and grandfather before him. 18 in the recent section, Kaelin said, his voice dead, hollow. 23 in the older chambers, and Illyra says there are more. She can feel them, sealed behind walls we haven't found yet. Your Majesty, Vanya began. How many? He looked at each of them in turn. How many children have you buried beneath this palace? Silence. How many? We don't know. Elder Thane's voice was barely audible. The records were incomplete, hidden, some destroyed. Estimate. Hundreds. The word fell like a stone. Over the centuries, hundreds. Kaelin's hands clenched on the table. Why? I told you. Corin's face was granite. They're contaminated. Their power destabilizes. Illyra just stabilized 23 of them with a touch. Kaelin's voice rose. Your excuse is a lie. It's always been a lie. It's not about stability. Eldamira spoke for the first time, her voice cold. It's about control. Every head turned toward her. They can't be controlled, she continued. The glow touched. Their power doesn't answer to pack law. Doesn't bow to alpha dominance. It predates our hierarchy, and if they're allowed to live, to thrive. She spread her hands. They dismantle everything we've built. Everything you've built on the corpses of children, Kaelin said quietly. Everything we've built to survive, Corin stood. You think we did this for pleasure? For cruelty? We did it because the alternative was extinction. When the glow touched awaken, they don't join packs. They transcend them. They become something neither wolf nor other, and everyone near them begins to change, to question, to rebel. Good, Kaelin said. The room went silent. Your Majesty, Vanya's voice was careful. Dangerous. If your hierarchy requires burying children alive, then it deserves to be questioned. Kaelin met each of their eyes. I'm releasing them. All of them. Illyra will heal them, and they will be given sanctuary. You'll start a civil war, Mira interrupted. You already did. He gestured toward the depths beneath them. The moment you decided some lives were worth less than your control, then you give us no choice. Corin's voice went cold. The council votes now on a motion of emergency purification. What? Kaelin's blood turned to ice. Thane closed his eyes. It's an old law. Allows the council to override the king in matters of existential threat. You're going to vote on whether to kill them, Kaelin said flatly. To purify the bloodlines, Vanya corrected. Completely. Finally. Every glow-touched child in custody. Every hidden bloodline in the kingdom. Every family that carries the ancient markers. That's genocide. That's survival. Corin raised his hand. I vote yes. Yes, Mira echoed. Yes, said Elder Dane. One by one, hands rose. Kaelin watched in horror as 8 of 12 elders voted to exterminate every glow-touched bloodline in the realm. The motion passes, Vanya said quietly. Purification begins at dawn. The children beneath the palace will be eliminated first, humanely. Then we move to the territories. No, Kaelin's voice was no longer human. His wolf surged, golden eyes blazing. I am your king. I forbid this. With respect, your majesty. Vanya's smile was razor-thin. In matters of purification, the council's authority supersedes the crown. It's been law for 600 years. Then I abolish the law. You can't. Not without a full gathering of territories, which takes months to convene. She stood. We begin at dawn. Kaelin's hands slammed onto the table hard enough to crack the stone. If you touch those children, if you harm one of them, I will personally— You'll what? Corin stepped forward. Fight your own council? Start a war? Split the kingdom? His eyes narrowed. Or will you choose her? The girl who's turned you against your own people? The bond line flared, and Kaelin realized with sudden, terrible clarity, they knew. They'd always known what Illyra was to him. You can have your throne, your majesty, Vanya said softly. Or you can have her, but you cannot have both. Choose wisely. She turned and walked out. The other elders followed, leaving Kaelin alone in the chamber, 8 votes away from mass murder and less than 12 hours to stop it. He looked down at his hands. They were shaking. Down. He had until dawn. Dawn broke over a kingdom on the edge of war. Illyra stood before the great hall's entrance, the same hall where Kaelin's coronation had shattered, where the altar had transformed beneath her touch. Now it would serve as the stage for one final revelation, or an execution. "You don't have to do this," Kaelin said quietly. Behind them, loyal guards formed a protective circle. Around them, crowds gathered, thousands of wolves drawn by rumors that spread through the night like wildfire. "Yes, I do." Illyra's hands glowed softly in the dawn light. "They voted to kill children, to continue what they've done for centuries. If I don't stop them here, now, with everyone watching." She looked at him. "Then those children die at dawn, and nothing changes. They'll try to kill you. I know." Her voice was steady. "Certain. But I won't die hidden. Not anymore." The hall doors opened. Inside, the council waited. All 12 elders arrayed on the dais where kings were crowned, where Kaelin should have completed his oath. Behind them, the reformed altar gleamed, still bearing the Uniter's mark that Illyra had awakened, and filling every available space. Witnesses, nobility from every territory, pack leaders, citizens, warriors, hundreds of wolves crammed into the hall, all demanding answers about the girl who glowed, the children found beneath their feet, the vote that happened in darkness. "She comes," Elder Vanya announced as Illyra entered. "The corrupted one, the deceiver who has turned our king against his own council." Murmurs rippled through the crowd, some hostile, some uncertain. Illyra walked forward, head high, until she stood at the hall's center, alone, exposed, exactly where she wanted to be. "You voted to kill children," she said, her voice carrying through the vast space. "Children whose only crime was being born different. We voted to protect the realm," Corrin countered, "from contamination, from the chaos your kind brings." "My kind?" Illyra's hands began to glow brighter. "You mean the kind you've been murdering for centuries? The kind you buried alive beneath this very hall?" "Lies!" Vanya's voice rose. "She speaks lies and sorcery." "Then let them see the truth." Illyra raised her hands. Light exploded from her palms. Not violent, not destructive, revealing. It washed over the assembled crowd like a wave, and everywhere it touched, vision. Kaelin saw it too, felt it. Memories ripped from the council's own minds, from the palace walls themselves, from the blood-soaked stones beneath their feet. A child dragged screaming from her mother's arms. Small bodies thrown into cells, left to starve. Elders standing over graves, muttering prayers while children suffocated in sealed chambers. Centuries of systematic slaughter, each generation teaching the next that this was necessary, righteous survival. The crowd's gasps turned to cries. Some wolves fell to their knees. Others stood frozen, tears streaming down their faces as they witnessed atrocities committed in their kingdom's name. "Stop this!" Corrin's voice cracked. "Stop this sorcery!" "It's not sorcery," Illyra's voice rang clear over the chaos. "It's truth. Every image you see happened. Every child you witnessed died. For 600 years, your council has hidden genocide behind law and tradition." "We did what was necessary," Vanya screamed. "You did what was evil." Illyra turned to face the crowd. "And last night, they voted to finish it, to purge every remaining bloodline. Every family that carries ancient markers. They call it purification." Her hands blazed brighter. "I call it murder." The hall erupted. Wolves surged forward, some toward the council in rage, others toward Illyra in fear. The carefully maintained order shattered like glass. "Seize her," Corrin commanded the guards. "In the name of the council, seize." "No." Kaelin's voice cut through the chaos. He stepped forward, moving to stand beside Illyra. His eyes blazed gold, his alpha presence rolling through the hall like thunder. "The council's authority is revoked." His words carried the weight of command, of absolute power. "By royal decree, effective immediately, I strip the council of all emergency powers. The vote is nullified." "You can't," Vanya began. "I am your king." The words came out half howl, and every wolf in the hall felt it in their bones. The undeniable pull of alpha dominance. And I say the children live. The purge ends, and anyone who defies this order answers to me personally. Silence crashed through the hall. Then Elder Mira's voice, cold and sharp. You choose the corrupted one over your own people. You betray everything your bloodline stands for. My bloodline, Kalen said quietly, stood for peace, for unity, for protecting those who cannot protect themselves. He looked at the council. You have corrupted that legacy, not her. Then you are no longer fit to rule. The words came from behind him. Kalen turned just as Elder Dane stepped forward, a ceremonial blade gleaming in his hand. Not silver, not steel. Kingsbane, the only metal that could kill an Alpha King. I invoke the right of correction, Dane said formally. For a king who has betrayed his people, who has chosen corruption over purity, who has, he lunged, fast, practiced, aimed directly at Kalen's heart. Kalen's wolf surged, but he was too close, moving too fast. Illyra moved faster. She threw herself between them, and the blade meant for Kalen's heart buried itself in her chest instead. No, the word tore from Kalen's throat, barely human. Time seemed to stop. Illyra looked down at the blade protruding from her chest, at the blood blooming across her white robes. Her eyes found Kalen's, and she smiled. Sad, certain, accepting. Now they'll see, she whispered. Then light erupted from the wound. Not blood. Light. Pure. Blinding. Overwhelming. It poured from her chest, where the blade had pierced her, spreading outward in waves that washed over every wolf in the hall. And this time, the visions came not from memory, but from something deeper. Truth, not of what was, of what could be. Children with glowing hands, welcomed, taught, cherished. Packs united not by fear but by understanding. A kingdom where ancient bloodlines and wolf blood walked together, neither corrupted nor pure, but simply different. A future where darkness beneath ceremony halls was replaced by light above them. Unity. The light faded. Illyra collapsed. Kalen caught her before she hit the ground, his hands pressing against the wound that should have killed her. Should have. But the blade dissolved, not melted, transformed. The Kingsbane turned to ash against her skin, unable to maintain its form in the presence of whatever power now blazed within her. Illyra, his voice cracked. Illyra, stay with me, please. Her eyes opened, changed, no longer pale, no longer haunted. Pure gold. I'm not dying, she whispered. I'm awakening. And the wound in her chest sealed itself, not healing, transforming. Where the blade had pierced, a mark remained, glowing, permanent, the same mark that now blazed on the reformed altar. The Uniter's mark. Illyra stood slowly, light still radiating from her skin, and turned to face the council, face the crowd, face the kingdom that had tried to bury her. I am not your destruction, she said, her voice resonating with power that shook the hall's foundations. I am your choice. She raised her hand toward the ceiling, and cracks spiderwebbed through the stone. Not destruction, revelation. The ancient stones peeled away, and sunlight poured through, illuminating the hall for the first time in 600 years. Since the day the first council sealed it. Since the day they chose darkness over light. Illyra looked at Kalen, at the wolves frozen in awe and terror, at the elders who'd tried to kill her. Choose, she said simply. The hall held its breath, and one by one, wolves knelt. The great hall had never seen true sunlight. For 600 years, it had been sealed beneath stone and tradition, lit only by candles and the cold gleam of ceremony. Now, with the ceiling shattered and dawn pouring through, everything looked different. Raw, exposed, honest. Illyra stood at the center of it all, light still radiating from her skin in gentle pulses. The mark on her chest where the Kingsbane had tried and failed to kill her glowed like a second heartbeat. Around her, wolves knelt in silence. Not all of them, but enough. Enough to matter. "Rise," she said softly. They did. Slowly. Cautiously. Looking at her with expressions that ranged from awe to terror, to something that might have been hope, Elder Thane was the first to speak, his ancient voice trembling. "The Uniter's mark. I never thought." He swallowed hard. "We were told it was legend. A warning of what would come if we didn't maintain purity." It was never a warning. Illyra's voice carried through the hall. It was a promise that one day someone would survive what you tried to bury. That one day, the choice you made 600 years ago would be offered again. "And what choice is that?" someone called from the crowd. Illyra turned slowly, meeting eyes across the hall. Fear or faith, division or unity, darkness or light. She gestured to the sunlight, streaming through the broken ceiling. "You can seal the stones again, rebuild the shadows, continue what your ancestors started." She paused. "Or you can let the light in." Silence. Heavy, fragile. Then Elder Corrin stepped forward, his face hard. "And if we choose darkness, if we refuse to abandon 6 centuries of law, then you lose everything anyway." Kaelin's voice cut through the tension. He moved to stand beside Illyra, his hand finding hers. "Look around you. The kingdom is already fractured. The truth is already exposed. You can't put this back in the dark." "We can try," Vanya said coldly. "We can declare her an enemy, a false prophet. We can rally those who still believe in purity. And start a civil war," Kaelin finished. "Is that what you want? To tear the realm apart over children who only want to live?" "They're not just children." Mira's voice was strained. "You saw what she did, the power she wields. If others like her awaken, then we'll teach them." Illyra's voice was firm. "Not imprison them. Not kill them. Teach them." She looked at the elders who'd voted for genocide. "You were afraid because you didn't understand, because you chose fear over knowledge. But it doesn't have to be that way." "Pretty words." Corrin's lip curled. "But words don't change nature. Your kind will always be dangerous." "So are wolves." Illyra's eyes flashed. "You shift into beasts. You have strength that can tear stone, instincts that can turn violent. Should humans fear you, lock you away, purge your bloodlines?" She stepped forward. "Or should they learn to live beside you, to understand that different doesn't mean dangerous?" The words hung in the air. Corrin had no answer. "The children beneath the palace will be released," Kaelin announced, his voice carrying royal authority. "They will be healed, educated, integrated into society as full citizens." He looked at each elder in turn. "Any who oppose this will be removed from the council. Any who act against them will face treason charges." "You can't. I already have." Kaelin's eyes blazed gold. "The decree is written, sealed with the sovereign mark. It's law." "Then you've split the kingdom," Vanya said quietly. "Half will follow you, half will follow us, and the realm will bleed." "Maybe." Kaelin's hand tightened around Illyra's. "But at least it will bleed honestly. No more lies. No more children buried in darkness. No more pretending we're righteous while committing atrocities." He turned to address the crowd. "I know this is frightening. I know change feels like chaos. But look, really, look at what we've been doing, at what we've become." His voice softened. "Is this the kingdom we want? One built on graves and fear, or can we be better?" Silence stretched. Then, from the back of the hall, a voice called out. "What happens to the children?" "The ones you found?" Illyra answered, before Kalen could. They heal. They learn. They're given the life that was stolen from them. She paused. And so is every other glow-touched child in this realm. No more hiding. No more shame. They exist. They're real. And they deserve to live. Even if they're dangerous. Especially then. Illyra's voice was steel wrapped in compassion. Because teaching them control, giving them community, showing them they're valued, that's what prevents danger. Isolation creates monsters. Love creates miracles. Another silence. Longer this time. Then a wolf near the front. A territory leader Kalen recognized, stepped forward and knelt again. Not in fear, in choice. I'll follow, she said clearly. Whatever comes. I'll stand with the uniter. Another wolf joined her. Then another. Not everyone. Some elders stormed out. Some nobles left in protest. Some wolves looked at Illyra with hatred that would never fade. But enough stayed. Enough chose light. 3 days later, the ceremony platform was rebuilt. Not in shadow. In the center of the hall, directly beneath the shattered ceiling where sunlight poured through in golden streams. The children had been brought up from the depths, 41 in total. Once they'd found all the hidden chambers. Some would survive, some wouldn't. But all of them saw sky for the first time in years. All of them felt warmth. Illyra spent those 3 days with them, stabilizing power, sharing stories, teaching them that glow wasn't curse, it was gift. Now she stood before the rebuilt platform, wearing robes that weren't white, weren't ceremonial or funerary, but deep gold. The color of her light, the color of new beginnings. Kalen waited on the platform, crown gleaming in the sunlight. But he wasn't alone. Beside him stood Soren, loyalists from every territory, and 4 of the elders who'd chosen change over tradition. The rest of the council seats sat empty. Are you ready? Kalen asked, as Illyra approached. She looked up at the platform, at the place where she'd been tested, where she'd nearly died, where everything had changed. I spent 5 years dying in darkness, she said softly. I think I'm ready to live in light. She climbed the steps slowly, each one deliberate, purposeful. When she reached the top, Kalen took her hand. The council won't accept this, he murmured. Half the kingdom still sees you as threat. There will be resistance, maybe war. I know. She smiled. But we're not doing this for them. We're doing it for the children who come after, so they never have to hide what they are. Kalen's thumb traced the unitor's mark on her palm, the match to the one on her chest. The proof that she'd survived what should have killed her. The coronation was never completed, he said. When I followed the scent beneath the hall, when I found you. He paused. I never took the final oath. Then take it now. He turned to face the assembled crowd. Smaller than before, but real. I, Kalen, Alpha King of the Wolf Realm, swear to protect all citizens under my rule. Wolf blood and glow-touched, pure and different, known and forgotten. His voice carried through the hall. I swear to bring light where there was darkness, truth where there were lies, and unity where there was division. He turned to Illyra. And I swear to stand beside the uniter, not as king to subject, but as equal to equal, partner to partner. His hand extended toward her, mate to mate. The bond line flared between them, visible now in the sunlight, a thread of gold connecting their souls, their fates, their futures. Illyra took his hand, and together they turned to face the kingdom, not perfect, not healed, but changed. The ceremony platform gleamed beneath their feet, reformed like the altar, bearing new symbols that spoke of unity rather than purity. Above them, through the broken ceiling, the sun continued to rise. First dawn of a new era, where hidden children stepped into light, where buried truths finally surfaced, where a girl left to die became the beginning of everything different. Illyra looked out at the faces watching them, some hopeful, some uncertain, all witnessing something unprecedented, and felt the weight of prophecy settle across her shoulders. Not burden, purpose. "Welcome," she said, her voice carrying through the hall and beyond, "to the kingdom we choose to become." And in the depths beneath the ceremony hall, in chambers that would never again hold prisoners, in darkness that would never again swallow light, the stones remembered, and the future began. The end. And a very special thank you goes out to Connie Peterson, our latest channel member. Your support helps keep these stories coming, and I'm truly grateful to have you as part of this community. If you're listening and would like to help support the channel while unlocking special member perks, consider joining the membership. Perhaps the next shout-out will be yours.